Okay, if you're a freelancer or a consultant, you know this feeling deep in your bones. You've poured hours, maybe days, into a killer proposal. You're psyched about the project, and then you get hit with it, the dreaded price objection. Well, today, we are going to break down how to make that whole problem just disappear for good. Let's dive in.
So picture this. You've had some great meetings, you've really connected with the client, and you've spent all this time crafting the absolute perfect solution for them. You hit send on that proposal, feeling great. And then, crickets. Until that email pops up, or the phone rings, and you just know, don't you? You brace yourself, because you know exactly what they're about to say.
And there it is. Ugh, that one little word, but. It's the phrase that just makes your stomach drop. It's deflating, it feels a little personal, and it's pretty much the nightmare scenario for anyone who sells their expertise. But what if I told you that this objection, this whole song and dance, has almost nothing to do with your price?
Right, so let's actually unpack this whole nightmare scenario. Because to solve a problem, you have to understand what the real problem is. And I promise you, why this keeps happening, it's not what you think.
You know, our first instinct is to immediately blame our price tag. We start thinking, man, maybe I am too expensive. Maybe they just don't have the money. But that line of thinking, it's a total trap. The real issue is something way deeper, and honestly, a lot more in your control.
Okay, so this is where we need to bust a huge myth in the consulting world. The real reason clients push back on your price, it's rarely about the actual numbers on the page. It's about something else entirely.
Let's do a little translation, shall we? When a client says, that's too expensive, what they are really truly saying is, I don't believe that the value I'm getting is worth more than the price you're asking. See, it's not a budget problem, it's a belief problem.
And this, right here, is the key to everything. Say it with me. Belief is greater than budget, every single time. When a client truly believes in the results you can get for them, you'd be amazed at how flexible their budget suddenly becomes. This is the most important mindset shift you can possibly make.
It all boils down to this thing called value perception. So think of it like this, right? Let's say a buyer has a hard and fast budget of $3 million for a new house, and you show them their absolute dream home right on the beach, but it costs $3.7 million. Do they just walk away? No way. They start scrambling, calling their accountant, selling a kidney, whatever it takes to find that extra 700 grand. Why? Because their belief in the value of that specific house made their budget constraints irrelevant.
So, the big question is, how do we build that level of belief? Well, we do it by using a framework called the value logic. And it's all about one simple shift. Stop talking about how much your service costs and start talking about how much it returns. Let's make this real. Imagine your work is going to generate, let's say, $2 million in new revenue for your client's business. You've done the math, you've shown your work. That is the value. That's their dream home on the beach. And then, this is your fee. $60,000. When you put that 60 grand next to a $2 million return, is it expensive anymore? Of course not. It's an absolute no-brainer. The entire conversation just changed from being about an expense to being about an incredible investment.
So from now on, when you hear, we don't have the budget, you should know it's probably just a smokescreen. It's code for one of three things. Either they don't really believe you can deliver the goods, they don't fully get how valuable this is, or you just haven't connected the dots between your fee and their biggest goals.
Okay, write this question down. This is your new secret weapon. By asking this, you gently push past the price excuse and force them to tell you the real reason they're hesitating. If they say, no, just a price, fine, it might be a real budget issue. But most of the time, they'll say, well, actually we're a little unsure about, and boom, you've just uncovered the real problem you actually need to solve.
All right, so we know we have to build belief. But how? How do we actually do that? Let's get into the practical side of this, the actual tools you can use to prove your value and turn a skeptic into a true believer. Look, the most powerful sales asset you will ever have isn't some slick pitch deck or a fancy script. It's proof. Cold, hard, documented results. They're just undeniable. When you can show someone the value you create, instead of just telling them about it, the whole dynamic of the conversation shifts in your favor.
This is the little sentence you want playing on a loop inside your prospect's head. A really well put together case study is like a magic trick. It lets a potential client see themselves in the success story of someone you've already helped. It stops being a hypothetical promise and starts being a documented fact. And hey, don't just write out a 300% ROI in an email. Show it.
Seriously, making the results visual makes the value feel so much more tangible, so much easier to understand, and frankly, a lot harder to argue with. A simple chart like this can be way more persuasive than a whole page of text. And you know, in this day and age, you don't even have to wait for a sales call to start proving your worth. If you build out a solid online portfolio with your case studies and results, potential clients can see for themselves how good you are before you ever even speak. You're basically eliminating objections before they even have a chance to form.
But what if it's a genuine budget issue? What if they really truly don't have the money? Okay, in our final section, we're going to talk about how to handle this without cheapening your work. And the rule is very, very simple. You adjust the scope, not the price. You never, ever discount. So instead of just slashing your price, you do this. Let's say the full project is 65 grand, but their max budget is 50. You don't just take a $15,000 pay cut. No. You go back to them and say, okay, no problem. To get to that $50,000 price point, which of these deliverables would you like to take out? This keeps the value of your work intact and puts the decision and the sacrifice squarely on their shoulders.
You have to understand, discounting is such a dangerous game. Yeah, you lose money on this project, sure, but the long-term damage is so much worse. It permanently lowers how people see your value, it sets a terrible precedent for any future work, and it basically teaches your clients that your prices are just a suggestion, turning every conversation into a haggle.
So let's just boil this all down to one core idea. The big mindset shift is this. Stop spending your energy defending your cost. Start focusing all of your energy on demonstrating their return. That right there is the heart of the value logic.
Always, always remember this. Your number one job in any sales conversation isn't actually to sell your services. It's to build an unshakable belief in the outcome you can deliver. When you get that right, you'll find the budget conversations just kind of fade into the background.
And I'll leave you with this to think about. When you successfully take price off the table, what does that open up? You're not negotiating anymore, you're collaborating. You stop being just another vendor, you become a strategic partner. So what will that conversation sound like with your very next client? Thanks for tuning in.